is that?
The simple pantry ingredients that can change your whole everything. Welcome to the Food 52 Test Kitchen. My name is Josh. I'm the Test Kitchen Director here. Here in New York, the weather is starting to get cold, gray, dreary, less exciting produce at the farmer's market. Food 52 community members have been writing in saying, what should I stock in my pantry to keep my cooking exciting? What can I do to stay out of a rut in the wintertime? We're making 3 batches of white beans today. We're gonna jazz it up with these pantry staples. It's gonna boost your home cooking so it tastes just as good as anything you could have in a restaurant. I'm gonna walk you through some of my all-time favorite pantry staples. There's gonna be some savory, like umami flavor boosts, some spicy things, some acidic things, and then some herbaceous flavors. With all these things at your fingertips, anything can taste great. I'm gonna start down on this end with my savory stuff. Fish sauce is an all-time favorite. Strong, salty, umami flavor. If you take the bottle and you smell it and you taste it, it's gonna be overwhelming. But a few drops into something much larger, it's just gonna be like a background flavor boost, savory kind of a thing. Nutritional yeast is another one of my favorite sort of pantry staples. People use nutritional yeast. I think it's most famously used as like a vegan replacement for cheese. Nutritional yeast though is great on vegetables. I'll drizzle it on top of like roasted broccoli, Brussels sprouts, nice savory flavor. Miso, this happens to be a darker red miso. A lot of times miso also comes in lighter flavors. Miso is a fermented product, so if you bring it to a boil and you cook it for a long time, it's no longer actively alive, although the flavor will still be there a little bit. More often, it's good to add some at the end of a cooking process. Every chef's favorite ingredient, anchovies. If you're tired and you throw anchovy in a saute pan, you fry it up, you cook some pasta with it, chili flakes, that's dinner for most chefs, I think. Tomato paste is another thing I love. If I need to reheat pasta, olive oil and a dollop of tomato paste, and I'll kind of fry the tomato paste in the oil, and then you toss the pasta, and that's a good way to spruce it back up, bring it back to life if you have cooked pasta. Now, this is traditional soy sauce. You can see it's a little bit darker than what I'm holding in my other hand here. This is called shirodashi. It's gonna be less salty than traditional soy sauce, and it's gonna be a little bit smoky because it's infused with bonito flakes. This shirodashi is one of my all-time favorite to cook with. Okay, so that covers some of my favorite savory pantry items. Moving on to the spicy stuff. Calabrian chilies, one of my all-time favorite things. They have a unique flavor and spice. They're a little bit tangy, like vinegar tang, and strong spicy flavor. Oftentimes I'll take like a tablespoon of the chilies and a tablespoon of olive oil, and I'll mix them together, and you get this spicy Calabrian chili oil, and you can drizzle it over your food. It's great on everything. Another favorite of mine, this is a Turkish chili called Urfa Biber. It has like a deep, it's almost like if it was a singer, it would be like a bass. Like it's not gonna punch you in the face with its spiciness. It's gonna give like a low level, sort of like a deep hum in your food. I don't know how else to describe it. I just love it. So these are my 2 favorite spicy condiments, pantry staples. Obviously, there's a ton more options when it comes to spice. And I'm gonna move on to some acidic stuff. If you're eating savory food and there's no acidity, your palate's gonna get bored. A few drops of acidity will brighten up almost any savory dish. My favorite sources for acidity, obviously there's vinegar. This is a cherry vinegar that I like a lot. Lemons, limes is a great option. Some lesser known ideas when it comes to adding a little bit of acidity to your food. Sumac is one of my favorite dry spices. A few pinches of sumac on top of like roasted potatoes or chickpeas. It has a little lemony tang to it. It's one of my favorite ingredients. Greek yogurt is another great option. I know you might think of it as being like rich, creamy, but it's also acidic. It has a little bit of a tang to it. You could add a dollop of Greek yogurt to like a stew, let's say. Indian food, it's great, a little dollop on top of it. It's a richness, but it's also gonna bring that little bit of acidity to balance out a very savory dish. If you put in a little bit of effort, make homemade pickles. They can last for weeks in your fridge, and the pickles themselves are gonna be delicious, but also the homemade pickling liquid is something you can use all over the place. You can use it in vinaigrettes. If you ever make deviled eggs, I like adding a little bit of a homemade pickling liquid into the deviled egg filling. It's nothing better than that. Make it, and it's there for you the whole winter. It's great. Fresh ginger. Peel off the skin. chop it fine, and you could throw it into stir fries, you could throw it into soups. A little bit of ginger goes a long way. It adds a really distinct flavor. If you're in a little bit of like a, I don't know what to cook kind of a phase, try experimenting with ginger, it's wonderful. Now we're gonna get into the more sort of herbaceous, dry spice kind of pantry items that I favor. Bay leaves are great. Throw it in a stock, a soup, a sauce, anything like that. You're gonna wanna remove it at the end. You don't wanna eat these. Dried oregano is another favorite of mine. It's versatile. I think a lot of people think of oregano as an Italian food or Greek food. I also associate oregano with certain Mexican preparations, and it pairs well with cumin. If you're cooking beans, you can add oregano into that. It's more versatile than people give it credit for, so it's one of my favorites. Coriander seeds is another great one, something I love. I'll throw a handful of coriander seeds into a soup or a stock. It has a little bit of a lemony tang to it also, and it also pairs well with Middle Eastern spices. Crush it up in a mortar and pestle, throw it on top of anything, it's great. Okay, this is another great one, fennel seeds. If you take your fennel seeds and you crush them up, you don't have to use a mortar and pestle like me, you can use a spice grinder or whatever. Crush your fennel seeds and they become so aromatic and so flavorful. They're one of the best things you could do. It's almost like an incomparable flavor. It's very versatile. Again, it has like a Mediterranean quality to it, so French, Italian, Greek food, whatever. This powder here is so wonderful. When it comes to your favorite pantry staples, there's almost nothing I wouldn't combine together. Almost every combination is gonna be fun and delicious. Now, certain pantry items you definitely want to add at the very beginning of the cooking process. The longer they're involved in the cooking, the more flavor will get extracted. Bay leaf is a great example of that, or other dry spices like the coriander. And then other items you don't want to add early, you actually want to add them late. Things like the vinegar and the acidity from the lemons and limes, the longer they cook, the less impact they'll have on the overall flavor at the end. Here are the white beans. They've been soaking overnight. They're gonna get divided into 3 different pots and cooked 3 different ways using a different combination in each of our pantry items. I know a lot of times the default cooking method is chicken stock or vegetable stock. Obviously, if you have homemade veg stock or homemade chicken stock, you should use it, but there's no reason to infuse your beans with the flavor of a store-bought veg stock or a store-bought chicken stock when you can create your own flavorful broth just using the pantry ingredients we have here. 1/3 of the beans are gonna go in this first pot here. This batch of beans are only gonna get cooked in water. This middle batch of beans here is gonna get cooked in water. I'm also gonna use that Urfa Biber Turkish chili in with the water. It's gonna create this deep, rich, spicy stock basically that the beans are gonna cook in. This is gonna be a nice spicy batch of beans. This third pot here, I'm not gonna add the beans yet because I'm gonna do a little bit of cooking first, then I'm gonna add the water to create an even more flavorful stock, and then I'll add the beans last. I'm gonna use tomato paste, oregano, bay leaf, and that crushed fennel seed that we had earlier. It's gonna be a really flavorful herbaceous stock basically that the beans are gonna cook in. So I threw a clove of garlic in here as well. That we weren't planning on doing that, I just kind of felt inspired to do it. And that's exactly what pantry cooking is all about. We started with nothing, we started with water. And then we used a few things that we have just lying around the house. Bay leaf, garlic clove, tomato paste, some dried herbs. And already you have something that has so much exciting flavor in it. I mean, cooks will strive to make things that taste this good, and we spent no money, we used things we already have in the house. It's a 1/2 pound of dried beans, soaked overnight, and then in the pot, I topped it with enough liquid to cover the beans by about 1 inch. I'm gonna bring it up to a simmer, and I'm gonna drop the heat so that it's just barely simmering. I'm looking for like a really creamy, rich texture on these beans. So it'll probably take about 2 hours. This is that Turkish chili called Urfa Biber. I love it, it's one of my favorite ingredients. It's not too spicy, you can really use a lot of it. When I add water to this pot, it's gonna mix with the Turkish chili. It's gonna make this sort of deep, rich chili stock that the beans are gonna cook in. This last batch of beans, I'm just gonna cook in water. I know some of you might be scandalized by that. Cook your beans in water, and then at the end, when the beans are done cooking, you can mix in other flavors. I'm gonna show you how with this pot here. All of our beans are nice and cooked, really tender. The liquid that they were simmering in has reduced down, and the starch from the beans in the reduced liquid creates almost like a sauce in itself for the beans here. These beans were cooked with the Urfa Biber Turkish chili. I'm going to set a skillet down and fry some anchovies in olive oil, and I'm gonna toss the beans in with the fried anchovies because chili and anchovy is a classic combination. These beans in the center, only cooked with water and salt. To add flavor using our pantry ingredients, we're gonna use that shiro dashi that we mentioned earlier, which is lighter than soy sauce and a little bit less salty, and it has that smoky element from the bonito flakes. We're gonna squeeze lime juice and olive oil. I know it might seem like an unlikely combination, but soy, lime, and olive oil makes a really nice, almost like a vinaigrette. These beans here have been simmering in a lot of flavor already, but to finish them before we eat, I'm just gonna give a little drizzle of olive oil and a little bit more of that ground fennel because it's one of my favorite things. Before we get started, do you want to talk through if either of you have any like favorite, like a pantry staple that you can't live without, something that gets you through the cold, dark winter?
I think for me it would have to be rice vinegar.
Oh.
Because I think you can always just like pop it into a lot of different things and it'll really brighten everything up. Just a little touch of sweetness. I don't make deviled eggs without rice vinegar. And I put it in like instant ramen and vinaigrettes and everything like that. So it's just like useful to have at any moment's notice.
My pantry staple is probably packaged ramen, which I have recently started to learn how to fancy up. So I actually made some recently. That's a pantry staple. I added leftover broccoli, I had some onions, I made some bacon.
All right, let's grab some spoons.
All right.
You go.
I got one for you.
There.
And get down in there, get some of that juice to go with it. I think you're gonna be surprised by this first one.
Whoa.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
What is that?
The simple pantry ingredients that can change your whole
So good.
everything.
That was really good.
It's chicken stock in there, right? Is that chicken?
I think I taste meat, but meat's not in the pantry, so I feel like there's no meat in it.
You're actually pretty spot on with that, and I'll explain why. So first off, these beans were cooked only in water with like a pinch of salt and nothing else.
That's shocking.
And then when they were done cooking and totally soft, I added 3 ingredients: olive oil, like good olive oil, lime juice, and we have a version of soy sauce that we call shiro dashi. It's not as salty as regular soy sauce. It's a little bit lighter in color. And there's the meaty flavor you're tasting is there's bonito flakes in with the shiro dashi, and so those have like a smoky, meaty kind of a taste to them. All right, round 2.
I feel like I can actually taste this, like the spices.
It's pretty subtle.
Yeah.
Fennel?
Fennel? Nice.
Cool. Yeah. So one of my favorite tricks is to take fennel seeds and grind them up in a mortar and pestle and sprinkle those over the top. So that's the fennel flavor. And even you can smell the ground fennel. There's so much flavor in this. So these beans, we gave it a squirt of tomato paste and then just sort of like dry aromatics. So a bay leaf, there was oregano in there and the fennel seed. And we did throw a clove of crushed garlic.
Oh, nice. I was gonna say it's almost like ragu-ish.
Yeah. If I was gonna make it again, I think I would bump up the tomato paste a little bit more, give it a little more of that like savory flavor.
Here we go. This is it.
This one's less brothy. No, anchovies? There we go.
Very good, Connor.
Oh, yes, I can. Isn't it this one that got the drizzle?
Yeah.
That's really good.
This was nice. This one is like long. The flavor continues.
Well, that's why I thought it was soy sauce at first, but then eventually, then they came out.
Well,
and they cut
so you
them
got
out.
anchovy.
I can
What else are you picking up here? Spicy? Anyone feeling a little spice?
Sichuan? No.
It's not Sichuan peppercorns. Do you feel a little heat from that?
It's subtle. Like,
Yeah.
Subtle heat.
I feel like
There's
I
only
ate
one
a
way to
lot
find
of
out.
broccoli. I mean, if we're gonna do it.
One of my favorite ways of bringing, it's not cayenne, it's from Turkey, it's called Urfa Biber chili. I love it because you can be sort of heavy-handed with it and it won't blow your palate away with spice. It's more of like a subtle, I think when I first described it, I talked about like a singer with like a deep voice. Because it's there, but it doesn't, it's not gonna knock you away.
Yeah.
We made homemade pickles, these pickled shallots. I didn't add any of the shallots themselves, but I find that when you make pickles, the pickling liquid itself is an amazing condiment to drizzle on anything.
Yeah.
Definitely feel like I already forgot how to pronounce it, but I want to try. Like I want to make that one.
Yeah.
It's easy and simple.
Yes.
And I can make it.
And you can make that vinaigrette like ahead of time and store it in a pint container and keep it in your fridge. It's good on like salads.
Nice.
If you roast vegetables, you could drizzle it on top of that. It's like
so good.
just make a big batch of vinaigrette with the olive oil, lime, and the shirodashi, and you could use it all week basically. Favorites? Do you have any favorites?
These two.
I agree.
I love them both equally.
I know. I was gonna say this one seems like a go-to.
Yeah.
And these seem to almost like elevate the beans.
Yes.
Beans 2.0.
Yeah. And the white beans are just an example of like how you can wield the power of the pantry basically.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, of course. With even a few special pantry items at your disposal, you could turn any ordinary meal into something really memorable and totally delicious. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section. I'm gonna do my best to answer them, and I'll see you next time.